Okay, so let's continue. We might cut, so you put go. So let's continue. Now, 6, the ability to roll tongue and types of ear loop. Okay, so this ability of roll tongue and also the type of ear loop is actually can be inherited from your parent to children, according to Mendel's law, where the ability to roll tongue is dominant. Okay, and the free ear loop is this one. Attached is like this. Okay, so this one is dominant, this one is recessive. Fixed one, this is you have to remember. Okay. Now, then family pedigree. Family pedigree, sometimes we call it as a lineage tree. Okay, lineage tree means 家庭树, family tree. Okay, can be analyzed to investigate the inheritance of human characteristics. So the family pedigree is a flow chart through a few generations, okay, to show the ancestral relationship. Means that the relationship, okay, the relationship between you and your grandfather's grandfather, okay, and the inheritance of characteristic from ancestor to individual in the present generation. For example, let's say Queen Victoria. Okay, this is Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. So they have 4 children. Okay, which is out of 9. Right? 4 out of 9. 4 of them are shown. Means that the hemophilic one is shown. So this one is a hemophilic one. This one is unaffected male. Okay, so means that he is the barrier of genetic, but he didn't show it because it's a hetero one. Okay, so from there, then from there we can see who is the bearer, who is the hemophilia, and who is the who is unaffected or who is the carrier. This is how the family pedigree used. 可以理解，这样通过 family pedigree， 我可以准确知道我的后代外来带来的那种东西是怎样的。OK 啊，Henry 是跟不知道，我没有很认真的看，但是hemophilia 那天我们有讲到了，就是这个，你的血不能够没有这么容易没有那么容易凝固。不一定，你是 carrier， 你老婆也是 carrier， 那么就会有机会中哦。你是 carrier， 你老婆不是都有机会中，只有你们2个都不是那个 genetic carrier， 你就不会有哦。所以它其实还是关系到那个什么。然后刚刚问的是 Dimitri 是吗？文宏 Henry 是不是跟亲戚结婚？我不知道，不过英国的那个王室呢，向来很讲究血统。所以有一定的可能性，他是跟他自己的亲戚结婚，只是那个亲戚是不是很近，我不知道。因为他没有那种很漂亮的公主，所以我没有认真去看过。她漂亮的都死很快，所以我们还是不要看比较好。Okay, so the analysis of family pedigree 它可以 enable 你的 geneticist， 就是那个我们讲叫做基因研究专家 to predict an inherited characteristic of interest, okay, and also to identify the features of dominant or recessive gene. Okay, they will use the family pedigree to search because, as we know, if we have dominant and recessive both, only dominant show. So from that, which characteristic shown always comes out? So that one will be the dominant trait. Okay, so normally Dominant gene appear in every generation, where recessive probably hidden in certain generations. Means that maybe several level is hidden, then come out. Okay? So remember, when you have a child with maybe you are fair skin, suddenly come with a little bit dark skin, don't think it's Kapi Lawang. Doesn't necessarily. Maybe the dark skin one has been like off. Then suddenly your daughter, you have maybe like your grandmother's grandmother is dark skin. Your wife's grandmother's grandfather also dark skin. So it's hidden all the way down until your daughter comes out. Okay? So this is how, like this is how we should draw the family pedigree. The first one in normal Roman numerical, this is 1, 2, 3 is the generation. First generation is always the parental generation. Okay, then followed by second and third. Okay, okay, from here you see the symbol we have to mention, and normally we will use like the shaded for shaded one, shaded shade for recessive means that the recessive have been shown. Okay, then the what I call the unshaded one, not shaded one is normally for normal one. Okay, and in order to show carrier, we will use half and half shaded as the carrier. Okay, you understand that? This is normally how we do that. Any questions? Dimitri, Wen Hong? Right, Justin? Yeah. All right. So with this, we end it. But of course, before we try this. Try these questions. 试看一下做这一个。Okay, try to do this. Meanwhile, give me a second. OK，不好意思，因为刚才断线，我隔壁家跳电。OK，看得到吗？做好了吗？不好意思啊，刚才在跳电，可以停一下了。文红呢？OK，好，来，我们来看一下它的答案哦。Okay, so let's see the answer. Let's check the answer. So a woman has a heterozygous B blood group, and a man has a heterozygous A blood group. So if the couple has an identical twins, so what are the chances of both children having A blood group? Then it wants you to explain the inheritance by using a schematic diagram. So like this. So the parent 哦，不是我家，我隔壁，因为它断线了嘛，我的 internet 是在隔壁嘛，隔壁被辟了，辟了，然后还没有到烧掉了，哇，跳电啊！我也是很怕我这边一直在跳电，因为刚才隔壁跳电。幸亏我刚才关掉那个插头，这个插头不我做什么？这副墙壁很弱，很脆弱，应该是因为我上面是那个那个避雷针，所以它一打到我，我这边每天就会有出问题。刚才我关掉了嘛，所以就没有事。OK，so for the parent, okay, you see, the father is said father man is heterozygous A means that IAIO. For the woman is heterozygous B, IBIO. So with this, it creates two gametes is one IAIO, IBIO. So cross-linking, they will get a progeny genotype of IAIB, IAIO, IBIO, IOIO. So you will get one AB, one A, one B, one O. So the probability of the one unidentical twins with A blood group will be 25% or 1 over 4. Therefore, the probability of both identical twins with A will be 1 over 4 times 1 over 4, which is 1 over 16. Okay? 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 Alright. So then for number 2 and 3, So a woman who is heterozygous for hemophilia marry a normal man. So the chances of the couple to have a hemophilic son. So for each of the birth, the probability to get a boy is 1/2. Therefore, the probability to get a hemophilic boy, heterozygous with normal man. So it will be 1/2 times 1/2, which is 1/4. So a man who is homozygous for the ability to roll the tongue married a woman who is heterozygous for tongue rolling. Both are heterozygous. So what's the implication? So it means that all of the children can roll tongue. 50% are homozygous and another 50% are heterozygous. Okay, 因为一个是 homo， 一个是 hetero 嘛。One is homo, one hetero. Okay, 看啊 ，correct. Okay, Dimitri 文宏做对啊。Okay 啊。All right, now let's continue with chapter 12. 你做不了，等下啊，未来。All right. Now let's continue. Yeah. This one, chapter 12, I think I will use module. I think I have to use the module as well. Variation. So let's talk about variation. Okay, the types and factors of variation. So variation is a difference in characteristic among the individual of same species. Okay, same species, there must be a little difference or sometimes even significant difference between the individual inside. Okay, like for example, even very close one, in family tree very close, but you and your brother, you and your sister, normally you will have a slightly significance, slightly difference, okay, in terms of physical outlook, okay, all this. So the variation include genetic, morphology. Morphology is your shape, form, and structure. And then physiology, we are talking about the function and mechanism of living system. Anatomy is about the internal structure of human body. Biochemistry and intelligence. Okay, these are the variation difference. So these difference in characteristics are due to the genetic factor or sometimes environmental factor or interaction of these two. Like the environmental factor is like, okay, like your skin, when you always, how to say, exposed under sunlight, your skin will turn dark. Okay, so this is how. So why we need variation in our population? This is because first, okay, the importance are we need to enable an individual to distinguish from other individuals of the same species. Second, it can increase the ability of a species to adapt themselves and survive in a changing environment. Okay, because through variation from generation to generation, it's like a slightly evolved. Okay, 就是比较小的进化。So you will like your genetic will try to overcome or sometimes adapt to the environment so that it can sustain longer. Okay, and then species that show variation can exploit resources in a new habitat because you can adapt to the environment. Okay, then it's a factor that lead to evolution. Like I said, it's actually a small evolution and formation of the new species. Okay, any questions? Okay, Dimitri, Wen Hong. All right, now, so there are two types of variation. First, we have continuous and discontinuous variation. Okay, now let's see. Okay, for continuous variation, okay, the trait of a characteristic shows a gradual change from one extreme to another. Means that it's actually how to say a gradual change，就是讲它是慢慢的变化。It changes slowly. Okay, it has an intermediate phenotype. Okay, it means that it has a in between one. Okay, the quantitative inheritance is a quantitative inheritance which we can measure with a scale. Okay, and this is due to the genetic factor and environmental factor, and is controlled by several genes, or we call polygene. Means that several genes control that particular, which will give effects towards that particular trait or characteristic. Okay, and then it doesn't necessarily, the trait doesn't necessarily to be inherited to offspring, and mostly are affected by environmental factors like human height, body weight, skin color, intelligence, leaf size, fruit size. These are affected by environment. Okay, like when you are actually normally when you are befriend with lots of genius. Normally, genius will only be friend with genius. Why? Because this is how the pattern is. You will be genius as well. At least you will be intelligent people. Something like that. Okay, so the shape of the graph, like shape of the graph normally shows a normal distribution curve, which is a bell shape. Okay, now for discontinuous variation, normally this kind of traits has a clear cut and distinct difference, means that very significant difference, 很明显的 Okay, it does not have intermediate phenotype. Like height, we have intermediate 嘛，我120，150 cm height. I got 160, 170, 180. So these are the intermediate one. Now for this one, normally don't have. Okay, like it's a qualitative inheritance, means that the characteristic is there or not, presence or not, and only due to the genetic factor. And it's controlled by single gene with 2 or more alleles. Okay, and it can be inherited to offspring without affected by environmental factor. And like for example, ABO group, blood group, rhesus factor, fingerprint pattern, hair pattern, ability to roll tongue, ear loop shape, and some of the examples of the garden pea characteristic that we learned on last chapter. Okay, so you see they show a discrete distribution of bar chart. Discrete means that it doesn't show like correlated with each other. Can I? Okay, yeah. All right, this one is pretty important, so I would like you to jot down. Okay, jot down the first part first. Okay. 啊，done，到这个部分 done 啊，copy and paste here。OK，then，好像不够的哦。刚才你们抄到哪里啊？该是抄的啊，这个啊是啊，OK，那么应该够，OK，刚刚好，OK，把这个也把它填下去，jot this down 来说。 Để Dimitri vào đấu. Dimitri đánh. Để Quang Hồng đánh. Ok, we wait. Justin for hả? All right. So let's continue. Okay, so let's see the factors of variation. Okay, for the genetic factor, normally due to the crossing over. Okay, remember during the meiosis one, okay, there will be a crossing over between the chromosome, right? So there will be a changes of what I call that, the changes of the genetic content, and also the independent assortment of chromosome, random fertilizations and mutation. These are the sequence that can cause genetic variation. For environmental factor like light intensity, okay, soil fertility, soil or water pH value, temperature, nutrients, and physical activities. Mostly this one will affect the plant. Okay. This independent assortment means that each chromosome have their own arrangement way. Remember the what I call the ACL arrangement and adenosine with all this. Okay, this one makes the genetic structure for each allele is different. Okay. Now, so for the genetic factor give distinct effect on discontinuous variation. Distinct effect 就是明显的变化不同。Okay, but the effect on continuous variation is not that obvious. This is due to continuous variation involves several genes and has a minimum effect to the relevant phenotype. So discontinuous variation only involves one gene. So genetic factor is obvious in gene expression into the relevant phenotype. Means that for discontinuous variation, it only involves only one gene. So a little change will show a very obvious difference. Okay. So for example, the crossing over. Okay. Yeah. So the crossing over occur at prophase 1 in meiosis, where two non-sister chromatids of homologous chromosome cross at the chiasma here and can undergo gene exchange. So this chiasma will interchange. You see these two they will change into this D goes here. The small d now goes here. Okay, the segment of DNA on chromatid will exchange place and recombination of gene is taken place because they already changed it. So the combination has changed. So the chromatids separate during anaphase 2 and the new combination of gene are produced. So the fusion of gamete during the fertilizations, it will produce a new zygote with various genetic combination. Okay. Now, second, independent assortment of chromosome. So during the metaphase 1 of meiosis, the homologous pair of chromosomes arrange themselves randomly at the metaphase plate. Like this. Then each pair of homologous chromosomes will arrange independently from one and another. and from other pair of homologous chromosome. That's why a gamete with different various genetic combination are produced. Because you see, the dark color will be the dark color and white color, they are different, correct? Sometimes the different combination like this. So this will show a different way, different combination of genetic. Okay, can you understand? Okay, 可以啊，看啊，Dimitri 文宏。Okay. Next. Next for random fertilizations. So the male and female gamete with various combination of gene due to crossover and independent assortment of chromosome will fertilize to form a zygote. So you're gonna have an infinite variation of offspring is produced because different combination every time. So the variation will be go until infinity. Okay, and mutation. Okay, mutation is the sudden change in the sequence of DNA nucleotide in the gene. So the structure of chromosome or numbers of chromosome, these are the changes involved. So gene that involved may change to dominant or recessive, and the genetic content in an organism will change. So this will contribute to variation of a population and might form a new species. Okay. Okay, Dimitri Wenhong. Because mutation means that there is a change in gene. So there's a change in gene, so it will show variation. Variation, you can say, is a difference between individual. Okay, of course, mutation it got two types: good one or bad one. Okay, now let's talk about the environmental. So remember, the phenotype or variation that is caused by environmental cannot be inherited. Okay, so for example, color of skin and fur in Siamese cat. Okay, so the enzyme that is sensitive to temperature is produced by a gene, gives a dark coloration to skin and fur. So the enzyme is only active at the part of the cat with low temperature, like tail, feet, ear, and snout. Okay, snout is the nose, the nose of what you call cat, by producing melanin pigment. So the sex determination in turtle and crocodile is determined by incubation temperature. So if the turtle eggs are incubated at temperature lower than 28, so all the hatched turtles are male. Above 31, all hatched turtles are female. In between 28 to 31, aqua, no, male or female can both be hatched. Okay, not become aqua. So the formation of queen bee and worker bees are determined also by the types of nutrition. Okay. 只好如果我们人类也可以这透过温度 control， 透过温度 control 这个呢，我改天然后我就可以确保我一定是生女儿。对，儿子不好玩了，女儿比较好玩一点。So the interaction between the genetic factor and environmental factor also will affect the phenotype of an organism, then affect the phenotype of that particular organism. For example, human height, he's talking about it will affect one of the phenotype and then affect other phenotype, like the human height and body shape. So the individual has many dominant allele for the height characteristic will be tall and muscular. If he is provided with sufficient nutrient and appropriate physical activity, in contrast, if he does not have sufficient nutrient and does not carry out any physical activity, So the height and body shape are not as tall and muscular as the previous one. Okay, then he got the tall gene, but if the nutrition cannot follow up, 跟不上, then fail. Okay, so then plant itself will grow tall and healthy if the light intensity, soil fertility, and pH are optimum. Under a condition that the plant has relevant genotype. If all the environmental factors are deficient means that 不够, not enough. The plant will not grow taller and healthy, although it has a very good dominant genotype. 也不可以。If you have enough nutrition but not enough, your genetic are not dominant, then also cannot. Because if it's affected by both, and genetic come first. Okay? So any questions? No, Dimitri Wenhong? Okay. Try this. 啊，intelligence 是它的聪明度。啊，啊 dimple 是酒窝。好了，done let me know 啊。Okay, so let's see the questions. So how can a variation increase the survival of species? So an organism in a population, there's a variation, possess characteristic which is adaptable to the environment compared to other organisms within the same population which do not have the variation. For example, intelligence. Okay, next, determine the following variation. Okay, intelligence is continuous. Presence of dimple is discontinuous. Type of hair is discontinuous. Okay, height is continuous. Means that it can continuous means that it can be affected by environment. Type of ear look is discontinuous. Okay, state two causes of variation. We have a genetic factor and environmental factor. And variation occurs because of sexual reproduction. So he wants us to explain. So the sexual reproduction involves fertilizations between male and female gamete. So during the formation of gamete, the cross-linking occurs between the homologous chromosome. So fertilizations between two types of gametes occur randomly, which causes variation in the offspring that produce. Okay.哇，前面封路，后尾封路，树倒下来。旁边他们讲那个树，我弟弟讲的树也有倒下来旁边。啊，应该是刚才有，刚才我们就讲劈中劈到很够力，或劈中哪里？应该是劈中这边的树啊。Okay, done. All right. So let's continue. 有点头痛啊，因为我又怕教太快了。All right, so let's see the relation. Next, the variation in humans. So let's see the relation between of a type of variation with human inheritance. Like for example, continuous variation. Okay, this type of continuous variation are only affected by genetic factor. Environmental factor does not affect this inheritance. Okay, so it can be determined by inheritance across a cross diagram or family tree, pedigree, sorry. Now, for discontinuous variation, so initially the this type of inheritance are determined by the genetic factor, but then it's determined, okay, like I said, genetic factor go first, but it can be affected later by environmental factor during the growth of human. Okay, you first, like for example, to become tall and muscular, first you must have the genetic, the dominant genetic for tall, and also what I call that the, 什么东西？等一下啊，对啊，哦，我知道还有讲啊，我听到了，刚才我是猜到一个这种东西啊。So it will be determined, okay, like I said, you first must have tall gene and dominant gene for tall height and also muscular. Then your nutrition must follow up. You must come out with exercise so that to become muscular. Okay? 这个就涉及到生活习惯了。Means that if your nutrient is already overload, this one is also environmental factor because you have, this is according to your nutrition habit. Okay. All right. So the genetic factor determine human height before and after birth. In human growth, the environmental factor like nutrition, physical activity will determine the human height. However, the height achieved unable to be genetic inherited to the offspring because no, the genetic yes, the gene yes alleles 啊，你的 genotype 可以 is can be inherited. However, 它是属于就是this one belongs to like it doesn't show up directly to your babies, your offspring. Okay, this one still affected by environmental factor. You understand what I'm trying to say? Means that, like I said, you want to be tall. First, you must have normal genotype instead of the dwarf one, because height only have two, normal and dwarf. All right. First, you must have normal. Then follow up with nutrition. Follow up with your physical activities, like when you are more on jumping, right? You like to do the 引体向上, I don't know the name for English, all this. So of course, you're gonna have a stronger bone. When you have stronger bone, you normally have higher height. Okay? 可以 Dimitri, can Dimitri 文宏 testing. 因为 OK 引体向上啊 when you try to pull yourself up 啊 the gravity, there's a gravity force acting on your body, so your bone will undergo gravity. So when your bone is undergo gravity, it will be experience pulling force. So when you are keep doing the what you call that, the lifting up exercise, you will always experience the pull from gravity. So for after a long time, it will automatically adapt and become longer, the bone. 对啊，你要加强，你高度为什么不能够训练 ？Why we cannot exercise to become higher, taller? Because we didn't let our body bone feel the sensation of stretching. The bone must feel they can stretch. Then the nutrient, the calcium will be used to stretch the bone. If you didn't feel the need to stretch, then it will not stretch up. That's why people say when you are playing with jumping rope or like those who like to play basketball because you need to jump all the time, right? You will be getting taller. Okay, but first thing first, gene come first. You must have the gene. If like all your family are not that tall, you can't have a 2-meter son. If you got for sure, it's completely one case. Okay, you understand? Huh? Okay, Dimitri 文宏 OK 啊 ，All right， 那么我们 class we stop here first. I want you to do some exercise. Wait 啊。I would like you to do the exercise for chapter 11 one. Okay, I got a question for you somehow. Try this. Okay, means that I need you to draw the schematic diagram. reverse 今天 reverse 方向还不太对哦。 这没有那个家出来外面种啊，说没有新的，还是我家还要做一点，还讲我汉族，在我家听过的，在我家前面听过的话，我看到6家以上，不同号码，有些是旧的，有些是新的呀。 哦，我本来还讲要讲没有我去载你回去啊，那你妈咪讲了，现在出来载你，你有看很大雨吗？哎，你追单，终于测到了哈。哦，这样你先下课先。OK，I guess 我把这个变成你的功课哦，因为I think I make this your homework 啊。OK，so and then all of you are allowed to dismiss。
拜拜，老师。
拜拜，不要闪掉我啊。好，拜拜。